What's going on, guys? This is episode 2 of my rant cast podcast, whatever. I don't have a name for it. I just thought I would get some of my thoughts out there. Just I guess when I have time or whenever I have a lot to say, I guess I'll just go ahead and do one of these. Anyways, I really wanted to just talk about, you know, my life in games, how I really got introduced to the hobby, how I got into it, where it started for me. Uh, and when I think about it, I mean, as far as back as I can remember, you know, when I was, man, maybe 5, I have a core memory. I got a Game Boy. I had one of those, I forgot what the actual name for it is. It was a purple Game Boy. I believe I had a yellow Game Boy Color, yellow Game Boy Color, and like a dang, I can't think of the name of it. The purple one. But I had two. I can't really remember which one came first, but I do remember one of my first gaming memories is me playing Pokemon Yellow on a yellow Game Boy Color. And I was probably like 5, so this was probably like 2000, 2001, something like that. Uh, those are my like very first memories of ever playing a game. Uh, and I remember specifically, me and my cousin were at a church. This is the core memory, and we were going through the very beginnings of Pokemon Yellow, which was getting out of the town and going to the first route and making it to the forest, and going through, running to a million Weedles. Uh, that was my first experience in games, and I think that's where it kind of probably took off for me. After that, I remember getting an N64. Maybe a couple years later, I had the Jungle Green N64. I specifically remember getting it. I'm not sure if it was for my birthday or for Christmas, but I remember getting the Jungle Green N64, and I had Donkey Kong 64. And I remember being at my grandma's house and, you know, booting it up and being on the island. I don't remember. I've played it since being an adult, and you jump off his HUD, and you can run around the overworld, and then you can make it kind of towards like the main overworld, where like you can like swim to the little island and all that stuff. I remember getting to that point, and and the DK rap song. I remember. I'm sure my family has a video of me or a picture of me of something, because that song has been etched in my brain since I was a child, and I probably just listened to the song so many times as a kid that it's just etched into my head. Like I can just hear it at random moments, or if I hear it in passing, at a game store, at wherever. It's just like I go back. It's like a nostalgic sound for me. Like it takes me back. So yeah, that was again probably like 6, 7. Oh God, shouldn't have said that. But 6, 7, 8 years old. Uh, that was my next experience. I don't really remember any other games. I do remember an uncle having a PlayStation, an OG PlayStation at that time, and he was really big into RPGs, like the typical Final Fantasy 7. He was also into like real time strategy, like Red Alert and Warcraft. Remember him having Warcraft 2 specifically on the PlayStation 1, and watching him play those games, sports games as well. And also, he had a Dreamcast as well. I don't really remember them playing it at all. I have no memories of it. I do remember him owning one. He did own a Dreamcast, and that's about it. I don't remember anything of that uh from that era. Now, you fast forward a little bit, I get into elementary school or later on elementary school to like junior high is whenever I got Game Boy Advance, a GameCube. I had a Game Boy Advance, a GameCube, and those are my primary gaming systems. I remember having the bangers. I had Luigi's Mansion. I don't know if I ever played Call of Duty: The Rising Sun. I think I had. There was a. I think it was called like Marvel. It wasn't called Marvel Alliance. It was like a Marvel game, and it was like a four. It was like a four-player like beat 'em up. It wasn't Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It was called something else. It was like the. I can't think of the name right now, but it was very weird. I remember owning it though. I wish I could think of the name, but it was like a four-player beat 'em up, and you could play with characters. And again, it wasn't Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I don't believe that game ever came out on the GameCube. It may have, but uh, I had that. Uh, I had an Army Men game. Pikmin 1. I had Pikmin 2. That's where I fell in love with that franchise. Just know that that's one of my favorite franchises of all time. But that's where it started. Was on the GameCube, and where I played it. And then for the Game Boy Advance, I don't really recall me owning any games. I did, I mean, mini games. I know I had Pokemon Emerald, and then I also had like a random Emperor's New Groove game. Uh, I had a Crash Bandicoot game, and then I can't really remember after that. I don't really recall. I had, you know, on the Game Boy Advance how they had that Super Mario World Advance series where they like not remade but like re-put out like they put out like Mario World or Mario 1, 2, 3 in World, and they ported them to the Game Boy Advance. Well, I had the Mario World version of it, and I love that game. That was the very first time I had ever played Mario World was on the Game Boy Advance, and I also had the strategy guide for some weird reason. I had the strategy guide for that game, and I don't remember beating the game, but I do remember getting very, very far in the game where I would use a strategy guide to figure out like the little secret levels and all that. And I remember I probably put hundreds of hours in that game as a kid. But that was my primary game when I was a kid on a handheld. Was that the DS? The DS was out already at this point, and I had friends that had it. I also had friends that had DS Lights. I had friends that uh, that was the thing, and I never owned a DS. I did own a PSP for a short time in my life, and if my mom ever hears it, uh, yes, that PSP was stolen uh, in or in junior high when I was in athletics. A kid 100% stole it from my locker. I specifically remember my mom telling me not to take the PSP to school, and I did anyway, and it was stolen. Like, if not the day before she told me that, it was stolen. And I never found out who stole it. I do know it was stolen at school though, because I put it in my locker, and then when I got back, it was gone. So yeah, so I never got to enjoy the PSP. I had the white Darth Vader version that came with what's that Star Wars uh Ro- that's not Rogue Squadron. It was like Star Wars something. It was a Battlefront game. It was like a Battlefront sequel or something like that. I want to say Rogue Squadron. I know that's not what it was called. I know it's not what it was called, but it was something like of those lines. And I remember there was a like on the front cover because I believe it came with the physical game, like it came with the actual game, and there was like a picture of uh of the rebellion on it, like a guy. I do remember that, but anyways, I don't have any much recollection of playing it. I do remember playing it, but I don't remember much of it. I do know I had it. Uh, I think I had a movie or two on the PSP as well. I think I also got this for a Christmas present or maybe a birthday present. So I did have that as well. But and then a little bit after that, my mom or my uncle, he ended up giving me his Super Nintendo when I was probably like 11 or 12, maybe like 10, 11, 12, something like that. I had got his Super Nintendo, and I had the main game that I remember having on the Super Nintendo was Zelda Link to the Past. That was the game that I had. It was like the version, like the I don't know what it was called at the time, but it was like a bestsellers version. I had like a gold like little like emblem on the front. Uh yeah, so I had that. I had King Griffey, like King Griffey baseball game on it. Super Mario World. I ended up getting that after the fact I've got it for the Game Boy Advance. And then I don't really recall any of the other games. I do know I had more games. I don't recall any of the other ones. But Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, I never beat it on the Super Nintendo. I do remember playing it on Super Nintendo. I never beat it. I got up until you go to like the I don't like the under I don't say the underworld, but like the I'm sure there's an actual name for it, but you went to like the dark world or whatever. I got that far where like you turn into the rabbit and all that. Spoilers for anybody who's never made it that far into Link to the Past. But like almost like halfway through the game, you go to the dark world and you turn into a rabbit and you have to like figure out how to get back to the human. It's like a whole thing. So I got that far as a kid, and then I could never figure out how to beat the game from there. I don't even think I figured out how to revert back to Link at that point. I do remember it being super creepy as a kid though, for like in that and that like overworld and that at that time of the level, it was like super weird and like super like dark. I don't know if anybody else can agree with me on that, but anyways, so that was that. So getting into my junior high years, like later in my junior high years, going into high school, uh I don't remember what happened to all that stuff. Moved I moved to a different city when I was going into junior high, and I didn't bring anything with me. I don't recall. I don't think I had any systems with me. Uh, and a couple years passed. It wasn't until maybe my sophomore year that I got back into gaming. I ended up with my uncle getting a PS3. I think, or he already had a PS3. He brought it over to my grandma's, and that's whenever I got to experience the PS3 in like 2000, like 2010, maybe like the summer of 2010. Is whenever he had the PlayStation 3, and that kind of kickstarted my gaming. I don't want to say obsession again, but like kind of kickstarted me playing games again. And I ended up playing the Telltale Walking Dead series on it. I think this is prior to me even watching the Telltale series at all. I don't think I ever even watched it up until this point, but I played the Telltale Walking Dead series, and then I ended up playing Heavy Rain, Call of Duty, Black Ops 2. I was really big on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I also played Fallout 3. So now, whenever I get to Fallout 3, that is where I kind of started falling back in love with gaming again. You know, as a kid, and I'm still a kid, at this point, but kind of like having a few years in between owning systems and having games and hanging out with my friends and playing their games and playing multiplayer and all this stuff, like all that kind of stopped. So whenever I got to Fallout 3 on the PlayStation 3, it's kind of where I was like, wow, like it kind of changed a lot for me because up until that point, I never played an open world game, like a true open world game. So Fallout 3 was like my introduction to like an open world, like RPG, like post-apocalyptic game. I loved everything about it. If you know me too, I love music, so that soundtrack, it really, it really like took me by surprise to hear music in a video game that really like not an OST, not an original soundtrack from a game, but more of like a playlist curated for the game to make you feel that you're immersed in that world. And hearing some of those songs at the time, it really just made it 10 times more, like 10 times better for me to experience the game when you have the radio on and going around the world and doing all these missions, meeting all these characters, you know finding all these not so-called secret areas, but running into enemies and dialogue and all that. It just really changed me as a gamer to get back into it. So yeah, Fallout 3 was that point. So I think I was about whenever I got to Fallout 3, I was already like a sophomore in high school, maybe the summer of my sophomore year. And after that, it was just I I got back into it. So yeah, that was my life as in high school. So it didn't really change much up until I graduated. I went back and forth. I played different games. I did start emulating around my senior year in high school. I got a laptop my junior year, and I started messing around with emulation. Ended up emulating Ocarina of Time on my laptop, which was a terrible laptop that I had. It was like, I mean, the most outdated laptop, but I could get an N64 and a Super Nintendo emulator working on it. And so I ended up with Ocarina, no, Majora's Mask. I had ended up with Majora's Mask. And at the same time, I was using the computer mainly to like pirate music and stuff, or like to put on my MP3 player. Even though streaming was like still kind of like barely getting into mainstream, kind of like getting out of its infancy from peer to peer sharing. I wasn't into streaming music quite yet at the time, and my laptop was just generally used for pirating music, and so yeah, so I went from uh that to emulating Majora's Mask. I never beat it. I think I configured the controls to my actual laptop buttons, so it was really freaking hard. So I do remember getting to a certain point and then just never playing it again. And then a little bit later, before I graduated, I ended up with an N64 from a friend, and they had so many banger games on it. Things I never got to play, like you know, GoldenEye and what was the other one? Oh, Ocarina of Time. That's where I played Ocarina of Time, Mortal Kombat. I'm trying to think what else that I had on the N64 that my friend let me. I like. Oh, Smash Brothers. For the N64, I'd never played it up until me getting this N64 from a friend. So, but the one thing though was Ocarina of Time. I'd never beat it. I knew it was considered, at that time, even one of the greatest games ever made. So I really wanted to, play it, try it. And I remember that's when I beat Ocarina of Time, was like my senior year in high school. And I put all my time and effort in beating the game. I don't recall. looking up any guides. I did it all straight up OG style. It took. I know I got stuck on the. I think it was like the water dungeon. I remember going days. I mean, coming home from school and like trying to figure out like what am I supposed to do here, and ended up beating it. So it's that was a real accomplishment for me, even at the time. Like I didn't look up nothing. I did it OG style, and so from then on, that's my end of my senior year. Going into after high school, I kind of go on another hiatus. I graduate, and then I don't take anything with me. I don't, the PS3 is kind of already going out the door. I believe the PlayStation 4 came out around 2014, if I believe. Uh, which my uncle, that's whenever he was out of gaming, so he didn't buy it. And the only reason why I had systems to play when I was, at my where I was staying was because he would bring it over and I'd have access to it like that. So he never bought a PlayStation 4. I never actually got a PlayStation 4. So it wasn't until around late 2015 that I got a PlayStation 4. I know my timelines are going to be so messed up, like when games came out or when consoles came out. I'm going kind of just roughly based on what I remember. But I do remember buying a PlayStation 4 at Walmart. I bought the Battlefront 2 version of it, and which is funny because I had the PSP Battlefront, and then it was stolen, and then we come full circle, and then now I have a next gen console that is also a Battlefront console. So yeah, I got the Battlefront 2 console, and the sole reason why I bought Battlefront for or PlayStation 4 was to play Fallout 4. Fallout 4. I wasn't following games, but I do remember the announcement of Fallout 4, and I had to play it. I had to play it. I had to have it. And the console the console I chose, PlayStation, and uh, yeah, that's the time I get back into gaming again, which is funny because one of the games that changed my brain was Fallout 3 on the PlayStation 3, and then here we are next generation, and we're in the PS4, and then the game that changed my brain again was Fallout 4. So I know the controversies of Fallout 4. A lot of people don't like Fallout 4. Good reasons why people don't like Fallout 4. The city building aspect, or like you going to save a settlement and all that. And I get it. Those were kind of just like thrown in there. You didn't need that. I never used that part of the game. The settlement thing, I never ever used it. So I never understood. I mean, I do understand the complaints, but I also don't understand the complaints because you didn't have to use that aspect of the game at all to enjoy the game. You could literally just go out on your adventure and never look back at your settlements, and it didn't matter. You could always just stay where you started and use that as like you could use the bare minimum as your like base as in a way. Like, oh, I need to have all this stuff. I want to drop it off at my base, at my settlement or whatever, and then move on. And that's what I did. So you didn't have to fully function, put turrets and fight off all these mobs and all that. You didn't have to do that, which I didn't. So when people were like, "Oh, well, I had this system in the game, and it was this," and it's like, you don't have to use it. Like they put it in the game if you wanted to, and if you didn't, you don't have to. So the other thing that kind of gets me is like, oh well, whenever power armor is so easy to get and obtain and to use, and you could find unlimited powers, power cores and all this stuff. But I think it added an aspect to the game to people who didn't play Fallout 3 and just wanted the access to the power armor. That was cool. You could just get the power armor, jump inside of it, and customize it at any point you wanted. Uh, that part to me was awesome. Finding all the power armor suits. I kind of like did like a collection thing where like I wanted to find every power armor suit available in the game. that was kind of like an achievement for me was to do that. And it kind of gave me more of a reason to every time I saw a power armor around the overworld, I would take it and I would put it at my, settlement just well, just to have it. Just it's there. And I always thought that was a cool aspect of the game. Also, the DLCs for the game were awesome. I know some of them were kind of stupid, like the one where it was like kind of just, oh, you can have robots and this is whatever. But Far Harbor and Nuka World were awesome. Like those are cool DLCs. Far Harbor is probably one of the best Fallout DLCs ever, if not the best DLC ever they have ever done. Uh, so anyways, I'm going off track, but yeah, Fallout 4. I got PlayStation 4 for Fallout 4, and then so at this point we already know what's coming out. We're late 2016 or 2015, going into 2016, and the Switch comes out in 2017. So leading up to the Switch, if you weren't there, if you're listening to this and you weren't there in 2016, leading into 2017, I mean, it was just a time. It was a time of people like me that were still had our foot in the gaming, but like weren't fully in gaming community. And leading up to the Switch, I truly my brain wasn't fully in it because, like I said, I wasn't keeping up with games every day like I have been for the last, 10 years. It was more of the fact that it was when I went to Walmart and how it happened to me. So to go on to the next part of me getting into gaming, whenever I got the Switch and how we got the Switch or how I got the Switch, I remember the day as it was. God, man, I remember being with my cousin. Uh, I don't really remember exactly like where I was exactly, like if I was staying with my grandma and he had came over or something. But I do remember we went to Walmart when Walmart's were 24 hours. Wow, that's crazy, right? 24-hour Walmart. But we went to Walmart and it was like late, man. It was like 11 something, and we get to the games, we get to the electronics, and there's a line of people at our local Walmart, and we're like, why is there so many people here? Like we really didn't know what was going on, and obviously we know midnight release is a thing. Midnight releases have been a thing for years and years and years. So when we're get there, we're like, what the heck? So we walk over, and then a friend of mine, his brother was in line, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, why y'all standing in line? And he was like, I really, honestly, I don't know. When I got here, I just got in line because everybody was in line. And so at the same time we're there, we're looking it up and we're like, oh shit, the new Nintendo console's coming out. And, at the time we're like, look, researching and we're like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't even know this was a thing, and the Wii U had already been a thing. My little brother had a Wii U. He had a 3DS as well. And I had skipped that generation of Nintendo. I had also skipped the generation of the Wii. So the Wii, the Wii craze, I wasn't a part of it because I never owned a Wii. I had friends that owned one. My cousin owned a Wii, but I was never crazy about it. I was never like, man, I need one of these or anything like that. And then the 3DS came out, and again, I never really cared about the 3DS. Now looking back on it, obviously there are games on it I missed out on. I'll be, discovering those consoles for years and years and years to come for all the things I missed out on. But at the time, like I said, my little brother had a Wii U, so he had all the games. He had Pikmin 3, he had Smash Brothers, he had Mario Maker, he had all that stuff. So, Pokemon tournament, I think. And so what I'm trying to get into is that I was never involved in it at the time. So seeing my little brother being in that part of Nintendo just didn't appeal to me. It was cool that the tablet was a thing. I didn't know. I did remember like messing with his tablet and being like, "Dang, this is cool. You can buy classic games on it, and like you can play, just different kinds of games." I always thought that was cool. Like the virtual console version of it was awesome. But again, never appealed to me. So fast forward to when we're at Walmart discovering this new system. As I'm looking it up, I'm like, dang, dude, they're coming out with a new game, a new Zelda game. And I like I said, I beat Ocarina of Time. That was the last Zelda game I had ever played was Ocarina of Time. And for some reason, when I watch the trailers and things like that for Breath of the Wild while I'm in line, I'm like, dude, this game looks absolutely insane. Like this looks insane. Like I have to get this. Like I have to buy it. Like I just had to have it. So waiting in line, there's only maybe 15 of us at most in line at my hometown. And it's crazy looking back on it because people were like, man, there was lines out the door. There was you couldn't, get a Switch. And I was able to get a Switch easy. I don't think I think the Walmart that I was at had plenty of Switches. Like everybody that was waiting in line was able to get a Switch and Breath of the Wild and everything else that was available, Skylanders, Bomberman, all that. I don't know exactly like, oh, I think did Arms come out? Or was it no, was it 1-2 Switch? I think it was maybe 1-2 Switch and Bomberman, Skylanders, and Zelda, and I'm sure there was like maybe a couple more launch titles. But yeah, I got Zelda March of 2017. I took it home and I wasn't able to play it because I had to go to work. I believe the next day in the morning. So I wasn't able to play it. It stayed in the box, and all I could think about was, man, I gotta get home and play this. I gotta get home and play this. Like that's all I thought about until I finally got home to play my Switch and played Zelda. And I remember like you know just having the Switch and just like the very first time, like, man, this console is fucking incredible, man. Like, and again, I was new to the world of the Switch, so I didn't even know like it was like a console handheld hybrid yet. So I got to experience all of that firsthand, being able to so all that was new. So I'm learning all this, and at that same time, I'm like, man, like straight to YouTube. Straight to YouTube. I'm like, who else owns a Switch? What games are coming out? Like, what is this? And that's the rabbit hole of Nintendo that I fell in. And I fell into that rabbit hole March of 2017. Uh, and it was just it was a time, man. It's hard to explain if you weren't like actually there or a part of it, or I'm like, talking over myself and stuttering like, oh my god. But it was just in that world, you had to have been there, to understand like everything that was going on, like the gaming community, specifically the Nintendo gaming community, but all of gaming at the time was on top of the world 10 years ago. Like, I mean, everything that you could imagine, like, was happening. Fortnite came out that around that time. Fallout 76 was coming out around that time, which was terrible at that time, but like people were so mesmerized. I was like, dude, Fallout MMO is insane, man. Like, you know, uh, Crash Bandicoot. We're getting Crash Bandicoot remake. No one had talked about Crash Bandicoot for years. Nothing had came out from him from years, and we're finally getting something like that. So 10 years ago, the Nintendo or the gaming world was, I think, at its peak in modern day gaming was around that time, like 2016, 2017, 2018, like pre-COVID, from like 2017 to 2020 was like peak gaming, man. Like it was just a time, man. It just was a time. So getting into that rabbit hole of the Switch, it was everybody I think that was in the same lane as me, like hadn't really been in gaming or maybe owned a Nintendo product when they were a kid or something like that in that world. And then the Switch coming out, and it was kind of like you're getting to rediscover the Nintendo almost kind of again, like you're becoming a part of that world again and like rediscovering games and or not just rediscovering games, but rediscovering the joy of the games. Like just everything that was gonna come out, whenever we got to see the Nintendo Directs in June, when E3 existed, when E3 existed, that, y'all remember E3. If you don't remember E3, you're too young, man. You're too young. If you don't remember E3, E3 was even when I wasn't getting all the games. I remember E3. E3 was the mecca. Like every you wanted to be a part of it. Like if you were gaming, if you were a gaming company, if you were gaming like you were a developer, if you it was E3, man. And every June was kind of what gamers waited for all year long. You get past E3, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. It's just speculating about what is Xbox gonna do? What is PlayStation gonna do? What is Nintendo gonna do? What is Ubisoft gonna do? What is EA gonna do? And it was just the greatest time to be a part of the gaming community. And I jumped in right when the Switch came out. And I also think that's why the success of the Switch even existed and ballooned the way it did was because Nintendo put out a console right at the explosion of what gaming became at that very moment in time. And so, again, if you were, still like I said, like me, like you had one foot in the gaming, and then you got into the Switch, it was a great time because you got all the classics, man. You got a Zelda game, you got a 3D Mario game. We hadn't seen a 3D Mario game since Sun no since Mario Galaxy. Like a just a 3D Mario game, like mainline 3D Mario game. You got Zelda, you had Kirby. Not that Star Allies was great, but you got a Kirby game, and later on and down the line, you got a 3D Kirby game with Forgotten Lands. You know, uh, you got Donkey Kong. You ended up they ported over the Donkey Kong game. Uh, just the only thing I think at the time that wasn't readily available was uh, I don't think Pokemon had a big game yet until Sword and Shield had came out. I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but because I do know they had like a little pixel game that they put out on the eShop, and they had like some Pokemon, like Pokemon Cafe and stuff like that. But like the first like big introduction to Pokemon being on a home console was Sword and Shield. When that was announced, and that generation of Pokemon coming out, the whole world was on fire, man. You got Smash Bros. So all of these games, huge titles, it brought people in. It brought people in like me, and you got to rediscover all that stuff again, man. And and that's just Nintendo. That's not even talking about, at the time with Xbox. Xbox was acquiring, every company under the sun, man. Like you had high hopes. You got to think 2017, I believe, either 2017 or 2018 is whenever Xbox announced that Fable, they're already making another Fable. They were making uh Elder Scrolls. They're making another Elder Scrolls. They were making early announcements, which, later on down the line, you're like, boo, where are those games? Fable's barely coming out, and then Elder Scrolls, we haven't heard nothing, I don't think, since that trailer from that year. But it doesn't it at the time it didn't matter, man. Like you were just excited for everything. So I ended up getting a PlayStation 4. So this is like 2017. So 2018. No, I had got a PlayStation 4 again in 2017, like the summer of 2017. I ended up getting a PlayStation, and then the Switch. It was just the Switch every year, man. YouTube. I got brought into the community. I started getting back into retro games. Retro games was kind of like the middle ground for me. I'm like, oh, I got the Switch, so maybe I should start collecting again. Or not collecting again, but like start collecting. And that's kind of what I did. I jumped into like, just obscure random things like the Super Nintendo. For some reason, I was buying boxed Super Nintendo games. I was buying every Switch title that came out, man. Like everything. I don't care what it was. I had a spreadsheet, and it was like somebody on Reddit had made a spreadsheet, and it was like, oh, here are all the games that we know that are coming out in 2017, and I bought every single game readily available, every single one. So I had hundreds of Switch games, man. Like I never played even 3% of them. It was just I had to have it. That was how obsessed I was, and I think a lot of people that were like me were the same way. I had friends that were the same way. Like we were going out and buying everything, man. Everything. Joy Cons. We were buying the different colored switches. They came out with Pokemon. Uh, was it Pokemon Eevee and Pokemon? I forgot. It was like Pokemon something. And I bought those. I bought the console that had Pikachu and Eevee on it. I mean, I was full in, man. So fast forward to COVID, you know, COVID was another time. It was like I said, it was like 2017, 2018, 2019. So now we get into 2020, and that's where things start to kind of like it kind of changed. A lot of things changed. If you were there, you remember, games that you were waiting for, games that had been announced prior to COVID were getting pushed, were getting canceled, were getting delayed. And it was a weird time for gamers. And I think that's where gaming kind of shifted. I think that's where people, where companies and investors put so much effort was in COVID, because so many people were buying consoles and games and switches, and streamers were at an all-time high. They were promoting all these games. Overwatch was on top of the world. Fortnite was on top of the world. Battle Royale games were on top of the world. And investors invested in so much, like uh free to play games, but like with kind of like what Fortnite did. They kind of just took over the market. Even at that time, like they just ran away with the market with skins and things like that. And I know Overwatch had been doing it already. There had been skins, there had been cosmetics already, but like Fortnite just changed the game. So in 2020, with Nintendo, I remember there was like a little time where we're like, dude, when are we gonna get a direct? So if you don't know, around they've had directs for years and years, but Nintendo Direct was pretty much what it is. It was Nintendo directly talking to the fans about what's to come in the future, games, consoles, whatever. And uh, they even had like partner showcases where it'll be third party developers, second party developers talking about what games they'll be putting on the Switch, some exclusives, some timed exclusives, and stuff like that. So at that time, we weren't getting it because Japan was, I mean, they had it really bad. COVID was really bad in Japan, and so we went like a whole year without a direct. It just kind of stopped, and I believe March or February, it was like March or something. They put out a press release for Paper Mario Origami King, and it was just a Twitter post. Like, I mean, a big game like Paper Mario. There's huge fans of Paper Mario. I'm a big fan of Paper Mario, but they're huge fans of Paper Mario. And the way that they addressed that game was like, oh, hey, here's a game. and it's Paper Mario Origami King, and we're like, what the hell? Like, what is going on? Like, they put this out, and we had not heard of this game, and it was coming out that same year. Like, I don't know, maybe I think it was a few months, like from when they posted, like, oh yeah, by the way, Paper Mario coming out soon, and you're like, what the heck? So everybody was kind of just freaking out a little bit, like, are we done with directs? Like, what is going on? And also too, right at the same time, Animal Crossing had came out. Animal Crossing New Horizons came out. If you're not an Animal Crossing fan, I mean, you were an Animal Crossing fan at that time. I mean, people I knew that never even heard of Animal Crossing didn't even know what it was. They were like, I gotta play it. Like, people were going and buying Switches just for this game, even though they never even played it ever, never heard of it. And it was crazy. It was a crazy time for me too, because I'm also a really big Animal Crossing fan. So when I first got into it, even though I had been seeing people talk about it, Animal Crossing this, Animal Crossing that, I didn't think that it was gonna turn into the console seller and kind of like the the big viral thing. I had friends that didn't play games at all, and they had it. And friends that I knew, like, they would never buy something like that, and they did. So, you know, COVID was a change in pace for people, because staying at home and like cozy games were getting a big deal. Just kind of like a casual market. I think a lot of people that weren't into games at all, and then COVID happened, they needed something to do. They needed more. They couldn't go out. So a lot of people were buying games that they could just play and didn't have to worry about competitiveness and stuff like that. I know, like, there's Overcooked and like Played Up and A Little to the Left. I know that A Little to the Left came out later, but I'm just examples, like, just cozy games that anybody could play. And I also think that was another big seller for the Switch. But so you get into 2021, 2022, and then you get to the crisis, the GPU crisis. There's no GPUs. And then, then I forget, PlayStation, the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, if people forgot, like I just did in this conversation of this video. The PlayStation 5 came out 2020. And most people probably forgot or forget that that console even launched in COVID. And it was at the tail end of COVID, I believe. But still, the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020. We are now currently in 2026. And it seems unreal to me that, like, these consoles, the Xbox was very close. I can't even put a time frame on when that came out. It probably came out around the exact same time, but if not before. But those consoles came out in COVID, during COVID. And so it was a weird time, man. Like, new consoles are coming out. Uh, so going into 2021 and 2022, uh, I think, I told said in my last video, like, that's kind of where, like, I still made it with games. That's kind of where, like, I kind of like fell off from games, like the Switch, but I think that's as a whole. Like, I feel like I don't want to say I'm reverting back to where I was prior to the Switch period in 2017, but I do think that I'm at a point where, like, I'm waiting for that next thing. And I'm 30 now, and I'll be 30 in a few weeks, or I'll be 31 in a few weeks. And the sad thing is like, I think that was the peak for me, was 2017 to like 2021, 2022. I think there's nothing that could come out in the future that even puts a light to the experiences that I had in those years from 2017. It's I don't think anything can compare, and I think that is just from the hype. I think that's from the games that existed. I think that was and this is for me personally, things that we would get later on. Like I said earlier, Crash Bandicoot, that's a big franchise for me. And even later on we got Crash Bandicoot 4. And those were a big deal to me. And I don't think that the gaming the gaming world can recapture that again for me. If they put out another, Crash Bandicoot, they could make something Crash Bandicoot like, oh, here are the obscure games that, Mind Over Mutant and fucking what's the other one? Shoot, what's it called? Twin Sanity? Twin Sanity, Mind Over Mutant. Here's some of the Game Boy Advance games. Like if they did something like that, then I definitely would buy into that. But that isn't something that is not something that would capture the same thing as me playing the original games again. And like I said, with Zelda, bringing me back into that universe and that world and capturing those moments when you first get into Hyrule and you know Mario Odyssey, playing Mario Odyssey, and when I know for anybody who's ever played Mario Odyssey, when you first load up the game and you're like getting used to the mechanics and the worlds and finding the moons, and even whenever you get to like you have that world, the Super Mario 64 world, and it kind of hits on the nostalgia, and you know Pokemon Sword and Shield, that one got me back into Pokemon again. And I mean, I could go on and on and on of like these moments that captured me. Even something as small as uh uh Pokemon Snap. I forgot to mention that on the N64 I did have Pokemon Snap, and I loved Pokemon Snap. That game was so fun. I remember going through Pokemon Snap a million times, and me and a cousin of mine, we would literally play Pokemon Snap and try to get the best photos of Pokemon, and like, oh, which one would Professor Oak, you know, choose? Kind of like, oh, here's mine, and then he would do a run, and then here's his. So, getting a new Pokemon Snap was, for me personally, man, that's something I never thought would ever happen. Like when that first got announced, I was like, wow, like Pokemon Snap of all things, Pokemon Snap. So getting a Pokemon Snap, and then where it all ties up for me in a bow is Pikmin 4. Uh, the Switch really, the Switch really kind of, on the last video, I was like, oh, this is kind of where it is. When Pikmin 4 was finally released after all the years of waiting, all the years of speculating, all the years of just assuming, when Pikmin 4 finally released for the Nintendo Switch, I think that was it. I got what I had been waiting for years and years and years. Even from having the Switch in 2017, I would make this prediction on my Facebook every year, like, oh, every direct, oh, they're gonna announce a Pikmin 4, they're gonna announce Pikmin 4, they're gonna announce Pikmin 4. And then they announced Pikmin 4. And then I got Pikmin 4. And I 100% at Pikmin 4. And I think that was the highest high I could have ever been for that generation. Like there's nothing that would compare to it. That's my all-time favorite franchise. So for me, finally getting that one game I had been begging for years and years and years, and also not just a game, like a game that met my expectations, and even more, like met my expectations and even more. They didn't have to add some of the things or implement some of the things that were in the base game, but they did. And again, spoilers for anybody who's never played Pikmin 4, but being able to play as Captain Olimar, even though it was like a small aspect of the game, I know it did give you the ability to get purple and white Pikmin, but even that detail to the game was like to me personally, like, you know, here's this. Like I know you waited for this, and these are the characters that we put into the game. Yeah, he's not a main character, but here he is. And I felt like that was a send up for me. Like when I 100% of the game, and that was a part of like the last major game that I ever played on the Switch was that. I think that tied up that part of my life. It tied it up neatly, and it was a send off for me. And even though they could make a Pikmin 5, they could make a Pikmin 6, they could make a Pikmin 7, Pikmin 4, I think, was kind of just the end for me in this uh in this part of my like gaming experience. So with me turning 31 in a few weeks, I kind of just want to end this video, saying that, you know, getting into these, next years, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, I got many years to get to 40. But I think that part of my life has moved on. And I don't think, again, that something will ever meet that expectations or compare to something like that. But it would never push me out of gaming. Gaming is my favorite hobby. I'll always love gaming, and I'll always continue to play those, the next generation games and get the next generation consoles. But I also want to go back to, not, I won't say my roots, but I want to go back to kind of what I missed, you know, back when I was a kid, back when I was a teenager, back when I was a young adult. Like those games on the PlayStation 3, those games on the, even the PlayStation 4, the games on the DS, the 3DS, the Game Boy Advance, all those games. Like I just want to really focus my gaming time to those games. And and again, I'm still gonna play modern games, but I feel like my life in gaming is gonna shift more like 80% towards, quote unquote retro, and then the other 20 will be modern. And I'm okay with that. I think another testament to this, and another testament to, you know, the feeling is the Switch 2 has already been out, and I couldn't care less. I'll own one day, but it was nothing compared to like I had to have the Switch, when I saw it. And I don't have to have the Switch 2. I don't have to have the PlayStation 6. I don't have to have whatever Xbox doing. Who knows what Xbox is doing now, with letting go of the CEOs, and we're putting Halo on PlayStation and we're doing all this. That's another video for another time. But uh I have my PC, I have my retro systems, and I'm getting into uh these new games, and I'm looking forward to what I missed out on. So to wrap this video up, yeah, I'm glad I got to experience all that time, and I'm glad you made it this far to the video if you did. And if you like these videos and you appreciate, me just going off, just whatever, like just having these conversations, feel free to comment about whatever your favorite system was, what drove you, what got you in the games, what's your favorite franchise, uh, and yeah, follow guys, and I'll see you on the next one.